Welcome to Dog Day Afternoon, your home for free NBA playoff picks, Major League Baseball picks, and best bets for Wednesday, May 25th. I'm Gilles Gallant with FTN Bets on a show powered by the FTN Network. And I'm joined, as always, by producer extraordinaire. I pointed right this time, Daquan Young. Quan, the Mavs finally hit some threes.
They got one.
Who knew? Yeah, no elimination for Dallas just yet. But the Warriors, they'll likely clinch in Game 5 in Golden State. At least that's just kind of what I think. Right now, the Warriors are sitting at 7-point home favorites. They won both games by nearly double digits. And what's hilarious, too, is the Mavs. And this is why I feel vindicated for not betting on Maxi Kleber last night, because he's my kryptonite. I wanted to take him for 3 or more three-pointers. They shot 46% from three-point. Max Kleber, only 2 threes. Had to do it. Very happy that I was able to take a little step back there and not bet him, and at least just feel a little vindicated on pushing back here. But forget about that game, and that series is probably all but over. But moving over to the Eastern Conference for Game 5 between the Celtics and the Heat, a lot of rumors. And again, I'm not really sure if I believe all of them, but just rumors that there might be some COVID issues going on right now, Quan, with the Heat. And I'm wondering, should we unload on the Celtics? Like right now, even just from this news, like the Celtics were -2, like 10 minutes before we started the show, up to -2.5 now. And I imagine if more news comes out, that line's going to either get taken off the board and then reposted at, closer to 4, maybe 5. What do you think we should do here when we hear like COVID rumors like that? Should we just stay the course and ride it out and let the smoke be, it is what it is? Or should we believe that there might be a fire here?
I don't know, man. It's tough to kind of call because, looking at the plays that you got today for the show, I think those are the guys that, you can kind of believe in and kind of trust. You said, there was one interview where, some of the guys, they were looking healthy and feeling good, but you never really know with the COVID rumors and the fact that it's still going on. You wouldn't think that, we're still talking about these kind of things. So I would keep my head down and keep going. We need some wins, and I think you got some good picks today. So, I'm
I like
assuming,
the vote of confidence.
Yeah, as long as you're not playing game spreads, anything like that, I think you still got a shot at a couple of them.
Yeah, I think anybody, if you're going to be betting the Heat, it's obviously a little bit troublesome right now if you're hearing that. But at the same time, I've seen crazier stuff where guys get ruled out with COVID and then the Heat just come out and win by 30. And again, a lot of, outside of Game 2, they've all been blowouts for the most part. So, all right. So we've got an awesome guest today, Quan. Jo Madden from Jo Madden Sports. She's making her Dog Day afternoon debut. She's going to talk some NHL with us, NBA as well. She's going to come on the show in the second half after we read what our picks are for tonight's Celtics Heat game. Now, before we get started with the picks, Quan, as usual, all my picks today are brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. And if Caesars is available in your state and you haven't signed up yet, now is the perfect time. Use the code FTNBETSCAESAR, the code on the screen, FTNBETSCZR. Caesars will give you an $1,100 free bet just for signing up. And if you already have a sportsbook account, get another one, man, because having multiple sportsbook accounts, you need it for prop betting and line shopping. It's something I do every day to get the best odds. You'll see it on Twitter. If I post something with odds that maybe aren't the best, somebody will immediately chime in and say, you could get those odds better at this spot. And consistently for me, Caesars has been my go-to for finding the best plus money options. So sign up today with Caesars Sportsbook. All right, Quan, let's start with the Omega pick. And for anybody who hasn't watched the show, the way that we do it is we have an Omega pick, a Beta pick, and an Alpha pick. And they're basically ranked based on the confidence of me winning the bet. So this one, the Omega pick, is my least confident, even though I feel very good about taking this pick. And we're taking Old Faithful, someone who has rewarded me many times in these playoffs, even if recency bias will show you that I haven't won very often. But we're taking PJ Tucker over 1.5 3-pointers at plus 215. And he may have, again, like I said, recency bias. He didn't hit it in Game 1 and Game 2, hits it in Game 3 against the Celtics on the road. But you got to remember context. Like, he left Game 2 with a knee injury in the second half. Game 4 was a complete blowout. Only played like 20 minutes in the game. But the fact remains, Quan, that if you would blindly bet PJ Tucker 2 or more 3-pointers in each playoff game so far, you'd have 6 wins, 9 losses, and 4.2 units in profit. And how do I know that? Because I've been betting it every game. That's the problem. That's the thing. You got to almost identify these periphery players and be able to carry it into that momentum. And as well, with how relentless Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been on the perimeter with their shot attempts, Tucker needs to play. He needs to be out there at least 30 minutes, I think, for the Heat to win tonight. The Celtics, they shot 50% from three-point in game 2. I don't think that was a coincidence that PJ Tucker left the game a couple minutes into the third quarter of how that three-point barrage happened. And in the last 2 home games for PJ Tucker, the odds for 2 or more three-pointers have been plus 175 and plus 80. And now we're getting about plus 215. So give me the mother tucking threes. Let's go again.
I think, to your point earlier, if there is somebody out with COVID, I see you tweeting time and time again. It's like PJ's not shooting, and you kind of went away from it. If you having somebody that has a COVID issue, I think his shots are going to have to go up, and I think Miami really needs this win at home. So you got to look for the periphery players to actually take shots. They got to make their open shots, and I think PJ is going to get a lot of opportunity to hit a shot. So if any night, I think tonight is the night that you can get PJ over 1.5 threes. So I think that's a good call on that play.
Tonight's the night we get into some shit. I like it.
There we go.
All right. Let's move on to the beta pick. The next pick is really someone who could fall in the alpha category just because of how high he thinks of himself. And it's the type of confidence, it's the inspiration we need. So we are taking Marcus Smart over 19.5 points and assists at minus 110. And he's a little bit banged up but from the rest of not playing game 4, we should see him play his usual 40 minutes tonight. And honestly, Quan, lately, he has just been a monster for these categories. He's had at least 20 combined points and assists in both games he played in the series, 5 of the last 6 playoff games overall, and 4 straight games if you count the 2 games between Miami and Philly. Another reason why I like this prop, though, and why I expect Smart to be out there for a pretty long time is his ball handling duties. Through 4 games, this is the one thing that I think people have noticed as well, is that the Celtics have just turned the ball over a lot, 61 times through 4 games, whereas the Heat have only turned the ball over 46 times. They need Smart out there to be a ball handler and not allow Tatum to kind of be in a position where he has to take the ball up the court. Peyton Pritchard, the less minutes that he plays, the better from a defensive standpoint. And the irrational confidence part, Quan, I think really has to be factored in, because Smart, he takes a lot of shots. Some of them not exactly the most advised shots. 13.3 shots per game. He's behind Brown and Tatum on the team, obviously. But of the 4 teams remaining, he's 6th out of all players in shot attempts per game. Like Luka, Clay, Steph, Marcus Smart, or Jason Brown, and you know what I'm saying.
Jaylen Brown.
2 on the Celtics. Yeah, too many names in my head right now. But the point is, he takes a ton of shots. So he could get 20 points, and you'd hit your prop on that. You wouldn't even have to worry about the assist just because of the volume. So I'm going to also, this is another thing that I would recommend if anybody wants to tail this prop, is to take a look at his double-double prop as well. Double-double is sitting there at plus 900 at Caesars. Might be a little bit better at some other books as well. But I'm going to be sprinkling on that tonight as well, because I think he's going to be needed to bring up the assists. Like he's had, 7-8 assists in 4 or 5 games. He's had a double-double in 2 of the last 3 games that he's played. So I think it's worth a sprinkle at plus 900. Give me Marcus Smart over 19.5 points and assists.
I think it's also a good play, because if you look, game 1, he didn't play. He came out the next game really aggressive. And, he was one of the quintessential points of, being on the floor without either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. He's going to be one of the vet guys, him and Al Horford, that put up shots, make the passes that need to be made and make the plays that need to be made. So I think, like, if you're looking for a double-double prop, I think that's also a great play. Either one, I mean, double-double, I would kind of like, I think they're kind of relative to play together for points and assists for Smart. So, I mean, either or, just depending upon the odds.
I think for me as well with Smart, another reason why I liked the over on this is just because of how many minutes he plays. Like in both games that he's played over 40 minutes. He was banged up in those games too. Like he missed a game in Milwaukee, came back, had just probably the worst game he's ever had as a professional in the playoffs, when he got stripped twice at the end there by Drew Holiday, and then came out in game 6
Bounce
like
back,
gangbusters.
Yeah.
And same thing in this Heat series. Like after he was out, he came back out and he hit like 4 threes in the first quarter. Like, so I just like my chances here on a bounce back game for Marcus Smart, especially in a pivotal game like this, where it doesn't seem to be that the Heat crowd really sways road teams. I will say that the Heat do obviously play better at home. I think that's a safe assumption for any NBA team so far. But again, I just think that Smart isn't really that type of player who shrinks playing in a road game.
Yeah.
All right, let's now move on, Quan, to the alpha pick. This is another player who definitely thinks he's the best player in the world, but this time he actually has the skills to back it up. We're taking Jimmy Butler, and we're going over 35.5 points, rebounds, and assists at -110. And Quan, playoff Jimmy, just a different animal, man. During the regular season, he only averaged 33 points, rebounds, and assists combined. In the postseason, that's increased to 39 points, rebounds, and assists per game. And in game 1 and game 2, which he did go over this mark, the line was 37.5 and 38.5, both at -110, and he went way over on both of them. Another aspect, though, why I'm taking the over on Jimmy here is Jimmy gets to the free throw line. 24 free throw attempts in both game 1 and game 2. He didn't play the second half in game 3. It was a blowout in game 4. So if you combine game 3 and game 4, he probably played 5 quarters, let's say. And he only had 2 free throws in those games. I think that's going to change when he comes back to Miami, get a little bit more of a friendly whistle. Also, in 7 home playoff games, Butler has went over this mark in 5 of them. In 14 playoff games, if you exclude game 3 where he got hurt and the blowout in game 4, he had 36 points, rebounds, and assists in 10 of 12 playoff games. So I feel like game 3 and game 4, we put those off to the side, is still a pretty good track record here. And with how pivotal this game is, I expect Jimmy, he's going to play at least 40 minutes. I'm kind of projecting a 25.8 rebound, 4 assist kind of line, which would take us over this 35.5.
Bounce back game. I think that's it. That's what's needed. The Heat. I mean, it's been an up and down series, and like you said, blowout last game. Yeah. So I think this is going to be. It's tough talking about the Heat because I'm one of those guys that's like, oh, the Heat are actually that good, and I don't think if they get to the finals, it's going to be one of those games where it's like, oh, the Heat are actually that good. Like everybody's going to finally see it.
That's kind of what happened in the bubble. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a team that was, a couple years ago, they were in the championship. And because it was the bubble, we tend to forget that the Heat are actually this good. So, I think with this being a home game, Jimmy Butler comes out, the Heat come out. I think they get a win tonight. And I think he's going to be, the de facto alpha because he for the Miami Heat, like, There's nobody else that I think Hero maybe in stretches, but I think Jimmy's been the most consistent and he will be the most consistent for this team. And, if they get a win tonight, it's going to be on his back.
Well, they need Tyler Hero. I mean, if anything, Tyler Hero needs this too because he's only averaging like 13 points per game. Need to see a 20 burger from him at least. I think if the Celtics, if they want to take down the Celtics tonight,
got to bring back Bubble Boy.
100%, man. So, all right, so those are my 3 picks. We're taking Marcus Smart over 19.5 points and assists, over 35.5 points, rebounds, and assists for Jimmy Butler, and of course, our old favorite PJ Tucker over 1.5 3-pointers at +215. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to bring on Jo Madden to talk about the NHL playoffs and give her best bet for the NBA playoffs tonight. Stay tuned. Dog Day Afternoon coming back in 1 minute. Welcome back to Dog Day Afternoon. I'm joined now by Jo Madden, fellow Canadian sports betting handicapper, has multiple shows like Pocket with Joe, Cup of Joe, Picks and Props with Joe. If you want picks, she's got them for you. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being here with you and your viewers today.
Absolutely. And it's always a treat to be able to bring somebody on that I haven't actually got a chance to speak to, just to hear more about what she's got going on, hear kind of her handicapping analysis. And it's stuff like that that I think we need to see more of in the betting space. Now, Joe, before we get to some of the picks you like, let's talk some NBA. The Mavs, they avoided elimination, slight home favorites. They're going back to Golden State for game 5. Do you think we see a game 6 in this series, or is this series pretty much over?
I think the series is pretty much over. We saw them with their backs up against the wall be able to get it done. I don't see them doing it 2 nights in a row.
It's tough. And really, they live and die by the 3. Even game 2, that wasn't enough to save them when they were shooting like close to 45% from 3, and they still lost by 9 in game 2, 25 points in game 1. Right now, for reference, anybody who's looking at tomorrow's game, Warriors are sitting at 7-point home favorites with an over-under of 215.5. But let's talk about tonight's game. Celtics and Heat. Each game except for game 3 has been kind of decided by 10 points or more. There's injuries across the board. A lot of players could be limited. There's some COVID rumors potentially coming out of the Miami camp right now. I can't keep track of it all. But right now, Celtics, they were -2. They've moved up to -2.5. The over-under sitting at 204.5. Do you think the Heat cover and maybe win as home dogs, or are we looking at the Celtics to take another road win tonight, Joe?
You know what? I have to still ride with the Miami Heat. I know we're hearing COVID issues may be coming out, but I do depend on this team to be able to have a strong game here at home. They're just so strong at home, strong as a home underdog. And I look at Jimmy Butler and what he's been doing. His opinions on what they need to change, coming out more aggressive, focusing and not shying away from that contact. I think he will come out strong tonight and be able to rally his team to the win. So grabbing them plus the points, I think, is a great way to go with this one, especially now up to 2.5.
Well, I love that you brought up Jimmy Butler, because that's my favorite bet tonight. Is I took his points, rebounds, and assists at over 35.5, and he's just been a stud playing in Miami this year, especially in the playoffs. And turnovers in this series has really been something to monitor. Through the 4 games, Celtics have 61 turnovers to 45 for the Heat. And we saw in the third quarter in game 1 where we just saw this big turnaround after the Heat were trailing by 10 or more. And then also all of game 3 where the Celtics had like 22 turnovers to the Heat's 9. I think you're definitely going to see, if Marcus Smart plays, a renewed focus on trying to get transition buckets like that. So I'm with you. I think the Heat, barring anybody, like as long as Jimmy Butler isn't on the COVID list out of nowhere, then I'm with you. I like the fact that Miami is getting points right now as a home dog.
Absolutely. But Joe, and I love the way they can rally back. This team can rally back from being down. They don't give up on the court. And I'm looking for them to do the same tonight. If they do get down, I'm not worried. I'll probably live bet them again if we do see them get down at some point here. So I
like that point.
Everything they take.
Yeah, I like that point too, because even game 4, even though it was a blowout in every sense, you could see them still trying to, pick away at the lead where they actually got it to under 20. So just something to consider if you're going to be doing some live betting. You could get, whoever's down, like if the Heat, for example, are down by 15 points at half, you can get a decent plus spread just looking at that. So yeah, consider that as well. Now, Joe, let's move over to the NHL, because you, I think, are probably I would say you're pretty strong in all sports, but NHL, I've been following your picks for a while, been very strong on that front. But the Avs and Blues playing tonight, I don't think it's a coincidence I'm wearing my Avs shirt. I am an Avalanche fan, but regardless, we can get into that later. But the point is, very pivotal game here. Blues right now on the road, they're sitting at plus 205 on the money line. Avalanche around minus 245, over under at 6.5. Colorado, though, pretty much destroyed St. Louis on the road, but the games have been much closer in Denver. And I wanted to know what angle you're looking at for this game. Do you think the Blues can pull off the upset? Are we thinking an Avalanche thrashing? Are we looking at the total? What's your thoughts on this, Joe?
You know what? I have to look at the total, because when we look at the first couple games of the series, we had Binghamton in net for the St. Louis Blues. He was a game changer going out of this series. Husso is a strong backup goalie, but he's not Binghamton. He cannot stop the Colorado Avalanche's shots on goal. He's allowing too many. We've seen 5 goals by the Avs in game 3 and 6 in the last game in game 4. I'm looking at taking the over 6.5, because I do see the Blues being able to get the goals as well tonight. Kemper has been allowing them in. They got 3 goals in the last game. And I think we easily see a 4-3 style game. I don't see this being a blowout by the Avs. I would caution anyone looking to take them on the puck line. Yes, they could get a nice cover on that puck line, but the Blues in an elimination kind of situation are going to put up a fight. That goalie is going to be pulled. If the Avs do cover the puck line, it's probably because of that empty netter.
Yeah, and that's huge because that's obviously going to play into your total. I think the other thing too, just looking at some basic raw stats, but the Avs, even though they haven't faced a ton of penalties, they're not taking a lot of penalties. Like they're pretty bad on the penalty kill so far. 35.6% of the time when a team has a man advantage, they're scoring on them. So that could really play a part as well of how St. Louis could be able to kind of keep it close. Maybe it's a 3-3 game going into the third period and you're just sitting there laughing, waiting until this next goal happens because you've cashed your over. So I love this bet. Obviously, I'm not going to say to take the Avs puck line just because I think the -1.5, even if it's a home team and with the empty net, I want at least plus 200 odds if I'm going to be doing a -1.5 on that spot. I find just like, for example, even the way, not to pour salt in the wound, but like Edmonton and Flames last night, or even
you're pouring so much salt.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know Evander Kane just got that empty net just because we were talking about it. Where it was a closer game, 4-3, and then Evander Kane gets that empty netter. But then, of course, same thing on the flip side for the Rangers and Hurricanes. Like that game again, same thing. -1.5. Rangers are sitting there around like plus 225. Ended up winning that as a home fave. Now, sticking with this game though, obviously, for anybody who's tailed me or anybody who watches what I do, I love player props, especially in hockey. And I find it's one of the best ways to find mispriced odds or value. Like somebody here at FTN Bets, Chris Meany, just kills it with shot props. But you like someone in the Avs Blues game to put up some points. Which player are we looking at for this?
Yeah, I'm going to have to look at Ryan O'Reilly. I think he's been undervalued by the books. Looking at taking his points over 0.5 at -135 tonight. Now, this is hit in 4 of his last 5 games. On the season, he has 58 points with 21 goals and 37 assists. He's getting the ice time needed, and he's been playing the Avs really strong. So I absolutely love him to get over that 0.5 points tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very interesting for him too, just being a former Colorado player. He's actually historically played pretty well against the Avs, even just during the regular season. He had points against them in both games. He's had points in 3 of the 4 games in the series, a point in 8 of the 10 playoff games. Like, I can't believe this is only -135, especially just for a point, like an assist or a goal. It's very easy to get that Gretzky assist in today's NHL. So I feel like this should be closer to like, -160, -175. So getting at -135 is great value.
Yeah, absolutely. And if he played for the Colorado Avalanche, if he was on the other team, we definitely would be paying that extra juice on him here. I just think the books are really undervaluing what St. Louis has been doing. So I love it. I've been riding him this whole series, and he's been making us money. The books have caught on a little bit, making it juice that you're paying instead of the plus money, but it's a great way to take it still.
So before we wrap up, Joe, I wanted to know your thoughts on what happened last night. I wanted you to give maybe more of an unfiltered view of just being in Alberta as well, and knowing, it's not a rivalry, but it kind of is between between Calgary and Edmonton. It's just not as documented in United States markets. In Canada, we know it, but just, at the same time, it just kind of illustrates. So I wanted to know, what were your thoughts on kind of how that game unfolded? Like, do you think going into game 5, like, are we looking at like a more of an extended series? Do you think Calgary will be able to pull it out maybe in the next game? I just want to know kind of unfiltered thoughts of what happened last night from your perspective.
So unfiltered thoughts from the very first period. We had Markstrom fall back behind the net, try to deliver the puck to one of his players, went straight to the Edmonton Oilers. They scored. It was like the team looked deflated in that second. And now we saw Edmonton come out, get those 3 goals in that first period. But Calgary bounced back in that second, getting 2, keeping it tight, tying that game up. So I liked what I saw out of Calgary in the second and the third period, but just playing strong in those 2 periods isn't enough to beat the Edmonton Oilers. They need to come out strong in all 3 periods. Can they do it? Can they slow down the Edmonton Oilers? I don't know. I was looking at last night, do or die. To be honest with you, I thought if they lost last night, this series is over, even though it wasn't the elimination game. For Calgary to bounce back here is going to be such a hard hill to climb. And I don't know if they can do it. Not if they play like they did last night.
That's exactly. And the one thing too, in game one, obviously you were probably feeling really good, 9 goals in a playoff game. You just don't see it very often. So to beat that team, to basically outscore them, because you still ended up giving up 6 on the other side. But even, to lose 3 straight games, that's one thing. But the one thing that's always very encouraging about the NHL, and at least hockey in general, is comebacks in series is not really that crazy of an idea. We've seen 3-0 series be overcome. 3-1 series lead deficits, they're not as scary as like if we were playing in Major League Baseball or NBA, where it almost feels like once you get up 3-1, it's very, very rare that you cough up a series lead. Obviously, there's been a couple more famous instances in the NBA, but for the most part, you go up 3-1. 80% of the time you're winning. But with NHL, there's just more chances. And I find teams can be able to kind of rally and get to that point. So I'm not going to straight out just endorse a Flames series price play, but I would definitely be looking at their -1.5 in game 5. Because I think, again, do or die, just kind of in that spot, getting last change. I think that's a good spot where they could get that empty netter. Maybe they lose it in 6. I'm not sure. But again, I just feel like game 5, you got to put all in on Calgary.
Yeah, absolutely do. It is do or die for them here. They really need to play better. I'm looking for them not to give Edmonton so much time defensively to set up as well. Watching those games, they really did try to slow down the game, but it worked to their disadvantage, passing the puck backwards, because we had the players from Edmonton rushing at them and getting the puck away from them, where if they just would have started moving faster, they would have been able to dominate in that area. So lots of disappointments last night, but hopefully they can turn it back around, Chris.
Well, and the unfortunate part sometimes too with the NHL is you get these dominant players like a Connor McDavid, like a Sidney Crosby, like where when they come in and then all the momentum is with them, and you just kind of have to just stand back and just be like, okay, they're doing what they're doing because they're legacy players, and they're probably going to win a cup or 2 in their career. And maybe this is the one where Connor finally gets one. So if unfortunately it has to go through Calgary, but again, at least I don't know. This is the one thing I wanted to know from a Canadian perspective. So I have no dog in this fight, but usually if a Canadian team makes it to the Stanley Cup final, Canada almost kind of like gets together and gets behind this team. Because you are a Calgary fan, if Edmonton was to make the Stanley Cup final, would you be rooting for them at all?
Okay, so this was a huge debate on my couch with my 2 teenage kids last night. My daughter said when Edmonton got up, she's going to jump on the bandwagon right now, so she's not the last to the party. And I looked at her and said, how can we ever cheer for Edmonton? This is such a hard internal battle for myself, because I do like teams like the Colorado Avalanche. I do have alliances to the Vegas Golden Knights. I know they're not in the playoffs, but I have love for some American teams. And there's a lot of great Canadians on those teams. So I don't know where I'll be at. I'm still struggling with this one, just hoping it's not Edmonton that makes it through.
Well, if my kids start cheering for the team that I hate, I'm going to tell them that they're adopted. Like I'm going to go for the jugular and say something really mean, because if they're going to stab me in the heart like that, and just basically they have to know this is a Cowboys house, this is a Blue Jays house, this is an Avalanche house, and if you're not cheering for them, you're against me. So kids or not, blood or not.
This runs in my family, I have to tell you. So I'm a diehard Chargers fan. My daughter has a Raiders jersey, a Raiders hoodie, and she's a Raiders fan. So it's not uncommon. My dad always cheered against everyone. She gets it from my Madden genes, that's for sure.
Well, that's awesome, Joe. I appreciate you being so candid with us. And that's all for us today. 3 picks from me, 3 picks from Joe. Before we go, Joe, can you tell the folks at home more about where we can find your work, what you've got coming up, and how we can have access to more content from you?
Absolutely. You guys can find me on all social media platforms at Jo Madden Sports. I have the Jo Madden Sports podcast, a Pocket with Joe, picks and predictions with Joe, which kicks off in the next couple of minutes here. And yeah, just check out social media. You'll find me there, you guys.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll be back on Friday on FTN Network. Another special guest, more picks. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at GDawg5000. Make sure to follow her as well at Jo Madden Sports. I want to thank everybody for watching Dog Day Afternoon. Bon chance.